At the famous Galactic University, there was a professor named Vrox. He was known across the galaxy for his knowledge and his ability to read any species' behavior. Vrox had taught countless students from every corner of the universe, but he had one strong belief that all students respected. He believed that when it came to stress and pressure, no species could handle it better than the powerful ancient alien races. No matter the challenge, no matter the situation, he knew the strongest species would always come out on top. One day, Vrox stood in front of a classroom filled with students from different alien worlds. There were Torgens from the red planet of Torvax, who could survive the most dangerous environments. And then there were the Zills, large creatures with rock-like skin, who could take hits that would crush the bones of most species. The room buzzed with excitement, as today was going to be a special lecture. Vrox had promised to share his newest study on how different species react to stress. Sarah, a young human student, sat quietly in the back of the room. She was new to the university, having just arrived from Earth, and she still found the alien world around her overwhelming. While most of her classmates were large, confident, and loud, Sarah was shy and often kept to herself. But there was something about today's lecture that made her sit a little straighter, her heart racing with anticipation. Vrox began his lecture with a simple statement that caught everyone's attention. Today, I will prove to you all that humans, unlike other species, cannot handle high-pressure situations, he said confidently, his voice booming through the classroom. Sarah blinked, not sure if she had heard him correctly. She was used to humans being laughed at or underestimated in this galaxy, but she had always thought they were capable of more than people believed. She clenched her fists, wanting to stand up and speak out, but she stayed quiet. She knew she wasn't the strongest, the fastest, or the most powerful in the room. But she had something else, something that no alien species had considered. Vrox continued, humans have been studied in various stress tests. In every test, they buckle. They panic. They lose control when faced with the smallest of dangers. If humans were put under the same pressure as, say, a Zills or a Torgen, they would collapse. This is a fact, and no one can deny it. The class murmured in agreement. The aliens around Sarah nodded, some with smirks on their faces, as if to say, "Of course, that's true. Humans are weak." Sarah felt a rush of anger rise in her chest. She knew she wasn't weak. She had faced difficult situations back on Earth, challenges that no one knew about, that she had survived through sheer determination. But how could she convince these powerful aliens that they were wrong about humans? The professor, seeing the reaction of his students, leaned forward. "I challenge any of you to prove me wrong," he said, his tone daring. "If you think humans are strong enough to handle high-stress situations, then show me. But you'll fail, just like every other test before." Sarah's heart beat faster. It wasn't just her pride that was hurt. It was something deeper. She knew that if she didn't step up, humans would always be seen as weak. She didn't care about proving herself, but she cared about showing the galaxy that humans were capable of handling more than just being seen as fragile and helpless. Finally, she raised her hand. Everyone turned to look at her. The professor raised an eyebrow. "Yes, Sarah," he asked, his voice laced with amusement. I think we can handle it," she said softly, but her voice carried enough strength to stop the murmurs in the room. The professor stared at her, surprised. No one had ever dared to challenge him so directly before. "Are you volunteering to take the test?" Vrox asked, a small smile playing on his lips. He didn't think for a second that a human could actually succeed. But he had to admit, this was a bold move. Sarah took a deep breath. "Yes," she said firmly. "I'll take your test. I'll show you that humans can handle stress better than you think." The room fell silent. No one knew what to say. The Zills, Torgens, and other species exchanged glances, unsure if they should laugh or support her. But one thing was certain. Sarah had just made a promise she couldn't take back. Vrox smiled to himself. He wasn't worried. "Very well," he said. Then let's see how well you handle a real test of pressure. But don't say I didn't warn you. The challenge had been set. Vrox, the greatest professor of the galaxy, had just made the bold claim that humans couldn't handle high-stress situations. And Sarah, a quiet human girl, had just accepted it, ready to prove everyone wrong. The following day, Sarah stood nervously outside the Galactic University's Grand Hall. She had no idea what kind of test Professor Vrox had prepared, but she was determined to face it, no matter how difficult. The challenge was clear. She had to prove that humans could handle stress just like any other species. And today, she would show the galaxy that humans weren't as weak as they seemed. Inside the Grand Hall, the alien students gathered. The Torgens towered over everyone, their dark, thick skin like armor. The Zills, with their massive, stone-like bodies, sat quietly, their faces unreadable. Other alien species from faraway planets stood in small groups, talking excitedly about the test that was about to begin. Everyone was curious to see if Sarah could handle what was coming. Professor Vrox stood at the front of the room, his sharp eyes scanning the students as they filed in. He smiled to himself, thinking about the test he had set up. He knew it would be impossible for Sarah to succeed. No human, in his experience, had ever managed to stay calm under pressure, but he was going to enjoy watching her try. "Everyone, take your seats," Vrox said. "Today's test will prove whether humans are as weak as I claimed, or if they can truly survive the highest levels of stress." The students quickly sat, the room buzzing with anticipation. Sarah walked to the center of the room, her hands shaking slightly. Her heart raced, but she tried to stay calm. She couldn't back out now. She had to show them that humans weren't weak. Professor Vrox gestured toward a large screen on the wall. "This is the first part of the test. It's a simulation. You will be placed in an environment filled with danger and stress. You must navigate through it and stay focused. Fail, and the test ends." A flicker of fear crossed Sarah's mind. What kind of test was this? But she didn't have time to think. She had to prove that she could handle whatever was coming. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. The screen lit up, and suddenly, the room disappeared. Sarah was standing in the middle of a dangerous asteroid field, with massive rocks flying toward her from every direction. Her heart pounded as the simulation began. She could hear the sound of rushing space debris and feel the vibrations under her feet. There was no escape, no way out. She had to move fast and stay calm. "Focus," Sarah told herself. "You can do this." The asteroids were getting bigger, coming faster. Her mind raced. There was no map, no instructions, just her instincts and her ability to think under pressure. Her hands were sweating, but she gripped the controls tightly. She had to think like a pilot, not as a frightened student. She quickly adjusted her position, steering the ship away from the incoming rocks. The aliens watching the test were shocked. Most of them had expected Sarah to freeze up. They had seen humans fail before, and they assumed it would happen again. But Sarah was calm. She was steady. She handled the situation with ease, moving through the asteroid field like she had done it 1,000 times before. Professor Vrox watched closely. He was waiting for her to make a mistake, for her to panic. But Sarah didn't. She avoided every obstacle, even when it seemed impossible. The asteroid field became more chaotic, but Sarah stayed focused, guiding her ship through the dangerous terrain. After what felt like hours, the asteroid field finally cleared. Sarah took a deep breath, but there was no time to relax. The next challenge appeared. This time, the simulation changed, and Sarah found herself standing on the edge of a giant cliff. Below, a massive creature with glowing eyes was charging toward her. The creature was faster than anything she had ever seen, and it was closing in fast. Her heart pounded in her chest as she heard its loud, terrifying growls. For a moment, she felt fear creeping into her mind. The creature was huge. There was no way she could outrun it. But then she remembered something her father had once told her. "When you're scared, don't freeze. Move. Think. You'll find a way out." Sarah didn't hesitate. She ran, jumping from rock to rock, narrowly avoiding the creature's claws. Her legs burned, but she kept going. The creature followed, getting closer with every step. But Sarah didn't look back. She just kept moving, finding a safe spot to climb. When she finally reached the top, she turned around, looking down at the creature, which had stopped at the bottom of the cliff. It roared in frustration, but Sarah was safe. The screen flickered again, and the simulation ended. Sarah stood there, breathing heavily but still calm. The room fell silent. The alien students couldn't believe what they had just seen. They had expected Sarah to fail, but instead, she had faced the danger head-on and survived. She hadn't panicked. She had stayed focused and found a way out. Professor Vrox looked at Sarah, his expression unreadable. He had expected failure, but instead, he saw something that shocked him. Sarah had passed the test, not just by surviving, but by doing so with calm and confidence. The students were stunned. They had never seen a human handle such stress so well. For the first time, they began to question their beliefs. Maybe humans weren't as weak as they had thought. Maybe Sarah had just shown them something they had never expected. Sarah smiled to herself, proud of what she had just accomplished. She had faced the impossible, and she had proved that humans were capable of far more than anyone had believed. But this was only the beginning. There were still more tests to come, and she was ready for them all. The entire galaxy was shaken by the sudden, terrifying news. Across planets, communication systems crackled to life, broadcasting an emergency message that no one had expected. On the surface of the Galactic University, students and professors alike stopped what they were doing, their faces filled with fear. "Attention all stations." The voice on the loudspeaker echoed, urgent and stern. "A galactic bomb has been activated. The device is currently orbiting the Zorvax Nebula. It is set to detonate in less than 1 hour. This bomb is capable of wiping out entire star systems. All attempts to deactivate it have failed." The news sent a cold shiver through the halls of the Galactic University. Vrox, the famous professor who had just watched Sarah face impossible stress during the test, was no longer focused on his usual lectures. Instead, he was now standing in front of a screen, his face pale as he reviewed the details of the emergency. The bomb was an ancient weapon created by a long-forgotten alien race, one so powerful that even the galaxy's most advanced species feared it. The device could destroy entire planets with a single blast, and now it was armed, ready to unleash chaos. But what made the situation worse was that no one knew how to stop it. Vrox turned to his students, his voice low and serious. "The bomb must be deactivated. If it explodes, everything in its path will be destroyed. But the technology is beyond our understanding. We've already sent teams to the nebula, but nothing has worked." The room was filled with the sound of nervous whispers. Torgens, Zills, and other species from across the galaxy all stood around, their faces filled with doubt. They had all heard stories about the bomb before, but no one had ever expected to face it. And now it was real. It was a race against time, and no one knew if they could succeed. Vrox's eyes darted to the corner of the room, where Sarah stood silently. She had proven herself during the test, handling stress like no one had thought possible. Could she be the one to stop this bomb? Vrox wasn't sure, but he had no other choice. They needed someone who could think under pressure, someone who could handle the stress of this impossible mission. "Sarah," Vrox called, his voice filled with both urgency and hesitation. "I know you've already shown what you can do, but this is different. The galaxy is at risk. Will you help us stop the bomb?" Sarah's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected to be asked to do something like this, but as the weight of the situation hit her, she knew there was no way she could back down. The pressure was overwhelming, but there was something deep inside her that pushed her to act. This wasn't just about her anymore. This was about saving everyone, proving that humans could do what no one thought was possible. "I'll do it," Sarah said, her voice steady but filled with determination. I'll stop the bomb. Vrox nodded, still not fully believing that a human could pull this off, but he didn't have time to doubt. They couldn't waste any more precious minutes. The fate of the galaxy was on the line. As Sarah prepared to board the shuttle that would take her to the bomb, the room filled with tension. Alien leaders and experts from across the galaxy had gathered in the command center, watching her every move. Sarah didn't look at them. She didn't need their approval. She focused only on the task ahead. This was her moment, and she wasn't going to waste it. The shuttle doors closed, and Sarah was launched into space. The stars streaked by as she flew toward the Zorvax Nebula, where the bomb was waiting. Her hands gripped the controls, her mind racing. She had faced stressful situations before, but this was different. There was no room for error. One wrong move, and the galaxy would be gone. She couldn't afford to freeze or panic. She had to think clearly and act quickly. As she neared the nebula, the bomb came into view. It was enormous, a black sphere surrounded by swirling clouds of energy. It was more terrifying than anything she had imagined. She could feel the intensity of its power even from a distance, but she didn't let fear take hold. She focused on the task at hand, her mind sharp and clear. She docked the shuttle near the bomb's control center. The cold, mechanical voice came through the comms, warning her of the countdown. Warning: the bomb will detonate in 45 minutes. Deactivation process required. Failure to comply will result in galaxy-wide destruction. Sarah's heart raced, but she didn't panic. She stepped out of the shuttle and into the bomb's control room. The technology was unlike anything she had ever seen before. Alien symbols flashed on the screen, and strange devices hummed with power. She didn't know how the bomb worked, but she knew she had to figure it out. Her hands trembled as she touched the control panel, trying to make sense of the confusing symbols. She felt the weight of the galaxy's hopes resting on her shoulders. She couldn't let them down. She couldn't fail. Minutes passed, and Sarah continued to work, her mind working faster than she thought possible. Every few seconds, the countdown echoed in her ears, and the pressure grew more intense. Her hands moved quickly but carefully, trying to understand the alien technology that controlled the bomb. The entire room seemed to pulse with energy, and Sarah felt the sweat on her brow as the tension mounted. The countdown was now at 30 minutes. Time was running out. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as the bomb's countdown echoed in her ears. 30 minutes. The seconds seemed to drag on forever. She stood in the heart of the bomb's control room, surrounded by unfamiliar technology and alien symbols. Sweat dripped down her forehead, but she wiped it away, refusing to let fear take over. The fate of the entire galaxy rested on her shoulders. She couldn't fail now. Her hands moved quickly over the strange control panel. The symbols flashed on the screen, mocking her, their meaning unclear. The room hummed with energy, and she could feel the weight of the impending disaster in the air. The pressure was intense, like 1,000 eyes were watching her every move. But Sarah kept her focus. She couldn't afford to lose her cool. Not now. The voice from the bomb system suddenly spoke again, cold and mechanical. Warning: countdown in 28 minutes. Deactivation process required. Failure will result in catastrophic event. The words sent a chill through Sarah, but she forced herself to breathe. She had been in tight spots before, dangerous situations that had tested her courage. But this was different. There was no room for mistakes. If she failed, the entire galaxy would be wiped out in an instant. She could feel the pressure of it all, but deep down, she knew she couldn't let it break her. She had to stay calm. "Focus, Sarah," she whispered to herself. "You've got this." Her fingers danced over the panel, pressing buttons and twisting dials, trying to figure out what each control did. The technology was nothing like anything she had seen before. It felt like she was trying to solve a puzzle with pieces that didn't fit. The symbols were foreign, the mechanisms strange and alien. But Sarah's mind raced, pulling from every bit of knowledge and experience she had. She had to find the right combination. She had to understand this. She recalled something from the test Vrox had given her, a lesson on staying calm under pressure. In the asteroid field, she had been able to think clearly, moving through the chaos by relying on her instincts. This was the same. She couldn't let the fear overwhelm her. She had to trust herself. The countdown ticked down. 25 minutes. Sarah could hear her breathing, each breath coming a little faster than the last. She had always thought she was just an ordinary human. No superpowers, no special abilities. But now, in this life-or-death moment, she realized that maybe she had something special after all. Humans weren't known for their strength or their size, but they were known for their ability to adapt. They could handle stress in ways other species couldn't, and maybe that was enough. She pressed another button. The screen flashed red, and a warning sounded. Warning. Incomplete deactivation sequence. Attempting reset. Her heart skipped a beat. She had made a mistake. The bomb system was now in a reset mode, and the countdown had paused, but only for a brief moment. She had to act fast. Come on, Sarah muttered to herself. Think. You've got one shot at this. She quickly ran through her options, mentally going over the steps she had taken so far. She knew she had triggered the bomb's reset sequence, but she didn't know why. It was all about understanding the technology. And then, something clicked. One of the symbols on the screen looked familiar. It resembled a series of dots connected by lines, almost like a star chart. She traced the pattern with her finger, her eyes narrowing in concentration. The shape matched something from her studies, a sequence used in early human navigation systems. It wasn't exactly the same, but it was close enough. If she could input the correct sequence, maybe she could override the reset process. Sarah typed in the numbers, her fingers flying over the panel. The seconds were slipping away, and she could feel the sweat beading on her skin. The countdown continued, ticking down relentlessly. 20 minutes. 19. Her heart raced as she finished entering the code. She hit the enter key, praying that she had done it right. For a moment, nothing happened. The room was silent, the only sound the humming of the bomb's energy system. Then the screen flickered, and the symbols changed. Warning. Deactivation in progress, the bomb system said in its cold, mechanical voice. 15 minutes remaining. A wave of relief washed over Sarah. She had done it. The deactivation process was underway, but there was no time to relax. She had to keep going. The bomb was still a threat, and every second counted. She watched the progress bar on the screen, willing it to move faster. Each moment felt like an eternity. The countdown seemed to mock her, its cruel ticking echoing in her mind. She had come this far, but she wasn't done yet. Not until the bomb was completely disabled. 15 minutes. Sarah's hands moved quickly, making final adjustments to the system. Her mind was sharp, but the pressure was beginning to weigh on her. She couldn't let herself make a mistake now. The countdown hit 10 minutes. The screen showed the final stages of the deactivation process. Sarah felt her breath catch in her throat. She was so close. The fate of the galaxy was now in her hands, and she wouldn't fail. Then, with a final click, the countdown stopped. The screen went blank. The bomb was deactivated. Sarah stood there for a moment, staring at the empty screen. She could hardly believe it. The weight of the moment hit her all at once. She had done it. She had saved the galaxy. Her body trembled with exhaustion, but a smile slowly spread across her face. She hadn't just faced the impossible. She had conquered it. Sarah stepped back, looking up at the stars outside the window. The galaxy was safe, and for the first time, she truly believed in the strength of humans. Sarah stood still, the cold, empty room surrounding her as the countdown froze on the screen. Her breath was shallow, but there was a faint, hard-won smile on her face. The bomb was deactivated. She had done it. But just as she began to feel a wave of relief, a sudden, harsh beep sliced through the silence. The screen in front of her flickered back to life, and the words "Reset process initiated" flashed in bold red letters. "No," Sarah whispered, her heart sinking. "This can't be happening." A low hum vibrated through the air as the bomb system started to reset. Panic rose in her chest, but she forced herself to take a deep breath. She had done it once. She could do it again. But this time, there was less time. The pressure was worse. Her palms were slick with sweat, and her thoughts were racing. The voice of the bomb system spoke again, cold and robotic, as if mocking her earlier success. "Warning, reset in progress. Countdown resuming in 15 minutes. Her stomach twisted in dread. The clock was ticking down once more, faster than before. The reset had started, and she needed to figure out how to stop it again. "Come on, think, think," she muttered to herself, staring at the flashing symbols on the screen. Her mind was racing through everything she knew about alien technology, about galactic bombs. She was still too new to all of this, but she couldn't afford to be new anymore. The lives of billions were depending on her. With each passing second, the pressure grew. She could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. The ship's quiet hum was suddenly deafening. Her mind kept replaying the warning message. She couldn't allow herself to panic. She had no choice but to keep her cool. If she failed now, if she didn't find a way to stop the reset, there would be no future. The galaxy would burn. Sarah's hands trembled as she tapped a series of buttons. The alien symbols shifted again, but none of them seemed to make sense. They were constantly changing. Whatever system controlled the bomb was designed to confuse anyone who dared to try and deactivate it. It was as if the bomb itself was playing a cruel game with her. It knew she had already won once, and now it was trying to throw her off balance. The more she interacted with it, the more the symbols seemed to twist into impossible shapes. She had to keep trying. She couldn't give up. She glanced at the countdown. 12 minutes. Her mind raced through every possible solution. In the chaos of her thoughts, one thing became clear. The bomb was resetting to its original state, and that meant she had to find a way to block the reset process. If she didn't, she would be back at square one. The whole deactivation process would begin again, and time would run out before she could even finish. A memory flashed in Sarah's mind. A story from her childhood, a game her parents had taught her to play. It was a simple game. When a problem seemed too big, you had to break it down into smaller pieces. Her parents always told her, one step at a time. She focused on that. One step at a time. Sarah quickly scanned the screen for anything that could be a clue, something to stop the reset. The alien symbols were still shifting in rapid succession. But then she noticed something odd. A small icon in the corner of the screen that looked like a lock. It wasn't flashing like the others, and it seemed out of place. It didn't move or change, and that made it stand out. She reached forward and tapped the icon. There was a sharp click, and the screen froze again. A new message appeared. Lockout engage. Reset process halted. Her heart skipped a beat. She had done it. The reset process had been stopped. But the countdown timer was still running. And she knew that wasn't enough. The bomb wasn't fully deactivated. She still had to finish the job. She quickly returned to the main control panel, looking for the next step. The alien technology, now more familiar to her than before, became less of a mystery and more of a puzzle she could solve. She had broken through the first lock, but there were more layers to uncover. The bomb system was like an onion, each layer harder to peel than the last. But Sarah wasn't afraid of hard work. She wasn't afraid of pressure. The countdown was now at 9 minutes, and there was no time to waste. She quickly input a series of commands into the panel, trying to match them with what she remembered from the bomb's initial deactivation sequence. Each step felt like it could be the one that failed. But Sarah's mind was sharp, and her body moved on instinct. The pieces of the puzzle were coming together. 5 minutes. The countdown was still moving, but Sarah could feel herself getting closer. With every input, she could see the system slowing down, the once random alien symbols becoming more predictable. She was learning the system, mastering it, and it was bending to her will. With each second that passed, the pressure grew heavier. The timer was relentlessly counting down, and there was still so much to do. The bomb's energy core flickered ominously, and Sarah's pulse quickened. She had to finish before time ran out. 3 minutes. She punched in the final code, her hands flying over the keys. The system groaned, and for a terrifying second, nothing happened. Then the symbols on the screen blinked green. A low hum filled the room, and the countdown stopped. The bomb was deactivated. Completely. Sarah collapsed against the control panel, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The silence that followed was deafening. The galaxy was safe. She had saved everyone. But even as the weight of the moment settled on her, Sarah knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The galaxy had seen what humans were capable of, and she had just proven that even the most impossible challenges could be conquered. The bomb's countdown had stopped. The room was filled with an eerie silence, but Sarah couldn't afford to relax. Her mind was still racing, her body aching from the intense pressure. She wiped her face with her sleeve, trying to shake off the exhaustion that was weighing her down. It wasn't over yet. Not entirely. Even though the bomb was deactivated for now, there was still the possibility that it could reactivate. She had only halted the reset process. There was no guarantee that the system wouldn't try to reboot or set off a chain reaction. But Sarah refused to panic. If there was one thing she knew about herself, it was that she could think under pressure. The room, dimly lit by flickering lights, seemed to close in on her. Time felt like it had stretched out into eternity. Each second was precious. Her eyes darted from one screen to the next, searching for any hint that the bomb might come back to life. The alien symbols still flashed ominously, but none of them seemed to indicate a threat. The core of the bomb was silent, its once thrumming energy now barely a whisper. She could almost feel the calm that had settled in the room. But she wasn't fooled. She had learned that with something this dangerous, nothing was ever truly calm. Sarah took a deep breath, trying to steady her shaking hands. She had done the impossible once, and now she was going to make sure it stayed that way. She knew she couldn't do it alone. It wasn't just about skill or intellect. It was about the teamwork that humans were known for. The power of working together. Sarah. Vrox's voice crackled over the comms, a welcome sound in the chaos. Are you okay? She almost laughed at the question. Of course, she wasn't okay. But she couldn't afford to let anyone know how much this had drained her. I stopped the bomb, she said, her voice more steady than she felt. But I need to make sure it doesn't restart. Vrox was silent for a moment, the tension between them thick. Understood. We'll be there soon. Hold on. Hold on. It seemed like the simplest thing to say, but in a moment like this, it felt like a challenge. Sarah knew she couldn't give in to the exhaustion or the fear. She had come this far, and she couldn't stop now. With Vrox's words giving her strength, Sarah returned her focus to the bomb. She knew the real danger wasn't over yet. She could almost hear the whispers of other alien races, taunting her, telling her that she was only human, and that she couldn't possibly beat their technology. But she had done it. She had proven them wrong. Now she had to finish the job. Her eyes scanned the controls again, looking for any possible hidden traps. But there was nothing. The symbols on the screen flickered in strange, unpredictable patterns, but nothing indicated a threat. It was as if the bomb system was waiting for her to make a mistake. But Sarah wasn't about to give it the chance. As her fingers hovered over the control panel, she heard footsteps behind her. She spun around quickly, her heart leaping in her chest. But it was Vrox, his alien form towering over her with a relieved expression. You did it, Vrox said softly, looking at the now deactivated bomb. His voice was filled with awe. I didn't think it was possible. Sarah met his gaze, feeling a mixture of pride and disbelief. She had done it. She had saved them all. But more than that, she had proven something bigger than herself. She had shown the galaxy that humans were capable of so much more than anyone could ever imagine. She stepped back from the control panel, still not fully believing that the danger had passed. "It's over," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Vrox nodded, his expression serious. "The countdown is frozen, but we need to make sure the bomb's core is completely neutralized. Otherwise, it could be a ticking time bomb again." Sarah's heart raced again. It wasn't over. Not yet. The tension in the room grew as Vrox approached the bomb's core. He studied the alien machinery with great care, pressing buttons and tapping the screen. Sarah couldn't help but watch, every movement seeming to stretch out longer than it should. The core was still active, its energy swirling inside like a living thing, waiting to explode. They needed to drain the power completely. Sarah's eyes stayed locked on the screen as Vrox worked. He was good. She could see that in the way his hands moved with confidence, almost like he had studied this type of technology before. She couldn't help but wonder if it was possible for a non-human to feel the kind of fear she was feeling now. She felt the weight of this task pressing down on her. Seconds stretched into minutes. Each one felt like an eternity. But finally, after what seemed like a lifetime, the bomb's core powered down. The energy field inside it began to dissipate, leaving nothing but stillness. The threat was gone. Vrox stepped back, his face grim but relieved. He turned to Sarah, his voice quieter now. "It's over. The bomb is completely deactivated." The words hung in the air, and for a moment, there was nothing but silence. Then, slowly, Sarah exhaled a breath she didn't even know she was holding. "We did it," she said, her voice shaky but strong. Vrox smiled, though it was a rare thing for him. "You did it. We're safe because of you." Sarah felt a rush of emotions flood through her: exhaustion, relief, pride. She had saved them all. She had saved the galaxy. As she looked out at the stars, she realized that the miracle wasn't just in stopping the bomb. It was in the fact that, despite all the odds, humans could face the impossible and find a way to win. It was a miracle, yes, but it was also proof that humanity's strength wasn't just in their hands, but in their hearts. They would never give up, no matter how impossible the task. And that, more than anything, was what made them dangerous. The room was still. The galaxy was safe. But Sarah didn't feel the joy she thought would come with success. Instead, there was a heavy weight in her chest. She had done the impossible, but it didn't feel like a victory. At least, not yet. There was something else that needed to be settled. Something more important than saving billions. The aliens in the room were staring at her, but they weren't looking at her with the same awe they had when she first arrived. The expressions on their faces had changed, and Sarah could feel it. They were watching her, thinking about the impossible feat she had just pulled off. Vrox, the alien captain, stepped forward. He didn't speak right away, but his gaze was steady, thoughtful. For a long moment, the two of them just stood there, locked in a wordless exchange. Finally, Vrox broke the silence. "You've proven something today, human." Sarah's eyebrows furrowed, unsure of where this conversation would go. "What do you mean?" "You've proven that we've underestimated your kind for far too long," Vrox said, his voice filled with an unusual sincerity. "You took a weapon that no one thought could be stopped. You defied all logic, and you saved us. I'm not sure if we can ever truly comprehend what humans are capable of, but I'm certain of one thing now. You've earned our respect." The words hit Sarah harder than she expected. Respect. It wasn't just about surviving or winning. It was about earning the kind of recognition that was often denied to her people. For years, humans had been overlooked, ignored, laughed at even. They were seen as weak, fragile, and naive. But today, she had shown them a different side. She had proved that humanity wasn't to be underestimated. Vrox took another step forward, his posture stiff, almost formal. "I've heard the stories. I've heard the mockery. Humans are unpredictable, chaotic, reckless. But today, you've shown us something more. You've shown us your true strength. It's not in your weapons or your technology. It's in your will, in your determination." Sarah felt the weight of his words settle around her like a cloak. She didn't need the aliens to tell her they respected her. She didn't need the acknowledgement of other species to feel validated. But hearing it from someone like Vrox, someone who had looked down on humanity only moments before, meant something. It meant everything. "There's one thing you must understand," Vrox continued. "The universe doesn't see your kind as anything special, but I've come to realize that your greatest strength isn't just your ability to fight. It's your ability to adapt, to overcome, to face the impossible, and make it possible." Sarah nodded, her thoughts running wild. She had always believed in humanity's potential, but hearing it from an alien species, someone who had experienced their power firsthand, was something else. For the first time, she understood the weight of her actions. What she had done was more than just stopping a bomb. It was about showing the galaxy what humanity was truly made of. "Thank you," Sarah said quietly. She didn't have the words to explain how much this meant to her, but somehow, she felt like Vrox understood. "We've heard the legends," Vrox said, his voice softening, "about humans and their ability to push through the toughest challenges. But until today, I never believed them. I thought it was all just myth. Now, I know better." As Vrox spoke, Sarah felt something shift. It wasn't just respect. It was something deeper, something that she had always known was within humans, the ability to unite, to fight, and to stand tall even when the universe seemed stacked against them. The room fell quiet again, but this time, it was a different kind of quiet. It wasn't filled with tension or fear. It was the quiet that comes after a battle has been won, after a challenge has been overcome. It was the kind of silence that speaks volumes. For the first time in her life, Sarah felt truly seen. Not as a human struggling to survive in a universe that didn't care, but as someone who had proven that humans, despite all their flaws, were capable of greatness. They were worthy of respect. The other aliens in the room, those who had once doubted her, now stood in a line behind Vrox. Their eyes were filled with something new. Awe. And maybe, just maybe, a little fear. Fear of what humanity could become. Fear of what humans could do if pushed too far. "We're in your debt," Vrox said, his voice quiet, almost reverent. "You've done what no one else could do, and for that, you've earned more than just our respect. You've earned a place among us." Sarah smiled, though it was a tired smile. She wasn't sure what this new level of respect would mean for her and her people. But one thing was certain. It was a moment that would change everything. Not just for her, but for all of humanity. They weren't just survivors anymore. They were players in this vast, unforgiving galaxy. And now, the galaxy knew their name. As Sarah stepped back, she looked up at the stars through the observation window. For the first time, she felt like a part of something bigger, a part of a universe that had always seemed so distant and vast. But now she understood. It was a universe that was just beginning to understand humanity. Her people, once dismissed as weak, now stood on the brink of something greater. And it was all because of a single brave human who refused to give up. She had earned their respect. And nothing, not even the darkest corners of the galaxy, could take that away.